Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to my channel. I'm waiting for my coffee to finish brewing. You can see over there. It's almost ready now. I'm about to make some breakfast. Today is my 12th day in a row of work without a day off. I have a couple of classes to teach this afternoon. But finally, there's light at the end of the tunnel and I have a little bit of time to make some content for you guys. So I thought today I'd do that. I'm wearing, this morning, the Seiko S&K 807, a piece that I think has taken a back seat in my rotation now that I have some nicer watches and now that I had some new things come in, one of which you'll see today. Does it get any better than that for 50 or 60 bucks? I really don't think it can. It's a beautiful watch. So I thought I'd wear it around this morning. Nice fall day here in New Jersey. Still my new apartment. Miss Queens, but God, it's nice having my own space, my own clean kitchen. So anyway, today we're going to take a look at my new strap. It's my coffee, by the way, that beeping noise. Sorry about that. We're going to take a look at my new strap that I unboxed the other day in that short video. I'll give you some more thoughts on it, show you where you can order it, what some of the options are. And then we'll take a look at the watch that it's on, which is my new vintage chronograph from Delbana, Swiss-made chronograph. We'll look at some of the history, talk about some of the pros and cons of the lesser-known vintage brands, especially for chronographs if you're looking for a mechanical chronograph. So anyway, I'm going to go get my coffee now, and I'll meet you in the other room after breakfast. Alright guys, welcome to my desk for a change, just because it made the most sense to do this here today. I finished breakfast, I've had my coffee. We're here at my desk to take a look at my new chronograph, new old chronograph I should say, and the strap that I bought for it. I guess first let me apologize, there's going to be some traffic noise. I have the windows open because it's so warm even though it's fall. You can hear buses and trucks going by. Sorry about that. Here we are. I want to start by talking about the watch, which I think is the more interesting part of this review for most of you. I know some of you might be interested in the strap, but a strap is a strap. More people will be tuning in for the watch, so let's start there. You can see here, this is my most recent addition to the watch collection. It is a vintage 2-register chronograph from Delbana, Swiss-made, entirely mechanical, hand-winding chronograph. This came into my possession because I'd been looking for a chronograph from one of the defunct or lesser known Swiss brands because they're so much cheaper. You can find them at really, really good values and you're still getting the same movements, the same quality watchmaking. They're just from brands that didn't make it to the present day. This particular watch I purchased on eBay from an antique store rather than from a watch-related seller, which carried a certain number of risks with it, which I was aware of as I was purchasing, but also meant that I got a price that I would not have gotten from someone who really knew their watch stuff. It came on this really awful strap. This is one of those straps you see on eBay from China where you can get genuine leather straps for $2 or $3. It's stiff. It's like almost impossible to maneuver. It has a butterfly clasp. As you can see there, it's really difficult to open. There's no pushers. It's all friction related. Really cheap metal, very flimsy. Just a really terrible strap. It also happened to be the wrong size. The listing said that this watch had 18mm lug width. Obviously the person had not actually measured it because it's 19mm lugs. So the combination of a poor fit and also just a really bad strap, I had to change it to really enjoy the watch. I don't know what this watch would have originally come on. was listed as from the 60s. I don't know if that's true or not. Um, this movement was around sort of 50s to the 70s, as far as I can tell. But if it was from the 60s, I imagine it might have been on one of those elastic metal bracelets from Speedle that you see so often on inexpensive vintage watches. Um, Either way, whatever it came on had long been lost by the time the watch came into my possession. So, more about the brand. Delbana was a watch company founded in 1932 in Switzerland. Um, there's not a lot of information out there about them. From what I can tell, they focused mostly around value prop watches, watches that could be bought in as like the house brand for jewelers and things like that. So, you had to cater to a complete clientele. You'd have people coming in for the really high-end, expensive Swiss watches, but you'd also have normal, middle-class, everyday people. You have to think about it. At this time, mechanical watches were more or less the only option, and so you couldn't cater to non-watch people and non-wealthy people simply by having a handful of $15 quartz watches. You had to find ways to make mechanical watches affordable, and Delbana was one of those brands. They continued to operate, as far as I can tell, more or less independently until 1976, when they merged with a watch group called Wega. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but they merged in the 70s after this watch was produced. And then in the early 2000s, they were purchased, having become more or less defunct, they were purchased by one of the big Chinese conglomerates. And so although they do make watches today, and maybe if I can find some, I'll put some pictures up in the corner of some of their current watches. They're all quartz based, they're all big, and there's no real remnant of the brand. And even though they were entry level back when this watch was made, they were making legitimate, properly made Swiss mechanical watches at an affordable cost, and that heritage is gone today. This watch, as you can tell, is a two-pusher chronograph. It actually has kind of an interesting history. The movement, and again, I'll put a picture up. There's actually a picture from the original listing of the movement in this very watch. Maybe I'll scroll through a couple other examples. This has a Landeron-48, which is the caliber that came directly after the Landeron-47. The Landeron-47 was the very first cam lever actuated mechanical chronograph. Up until then, they'd all been based on column wheel construction, which is more expensive, more complicated, and has more moving parts. And so part of the way that the movement producers wanted to make chronographs available to a wider array of people, and again, remember, you couldn't get a digital Casio stopwatch back in this time. Like, if you wanted a chronograph, it had to be mechanical. And for many people, many middle-class and working-class people, the column wheel chronographs were just too expensive. They were prohibitively expensive. They were not a realistic option. So the Landeron-47 became the first mass-produced cam lever actuated chronograph and was much, much less expensive. It was a little bit different. It was actually a three-pusher chronograph. So while this has two pushers and a crown, you would have had three separate pushers in the original version. One for start, one for stop, and one for reset. This is the Landeron-48, the direct successor in the lineup. This is a two-pusher chronograph. It has the more familiar design. It looks like any other chronograph looks. However, it still is a little bit different. The top pusher, as you can see, is start. And the bottom pusher is stop. And we'll see what happens. I'm having some trouble with the chronograph. And reset. And there you go. As you can see, I guess we can jump straight into the issues with buying a vintage piece. This chronograph does not always reset directly to 12. Often it does, but sometimes it doesn't. And that, for me, has been kind of an issue. The point of that exercise is simply to show that Well, most of you will be familiar with chronographs where start and stop, or start and pause, is the same top pusher, and then reset is the bottom. The original Landeron 48 was a little bit different. Anyway, let's talk more about this watch in particular. You'll see a lot of similar examples to this watch on eBay. I mean, not a lot, but they come up now and then. From different years and slightly different sizes, but with more or less the same dial layout, the same or related movements. Often they are missing hands, they are broken, they're not running, etc., etc. When I bought this one, there was one that was just the watch head with no strap at all, which is fine, with no strap, and I believe the minute register had no hand, and with 2 days left, the bidding was around $200 for, what is a broken watch. I mean, it would have needed repair. So I felt really, really blessed to find an exceptional deal on this watch, despite its issues, despite the chronograph hand not always lining up. I got this for less than the cost of a Seagull 1963 reissue, which I think is pretty amazing. And if I get closer, let's see how close I can get, you'll see the left, I'll use my thumb, the left register is running seconds. So that's the seconds for the actual time, whereas the right register is the chronograph minutes. I'm not going to go back through it, but this is actually it's a movement where the minute clicks over at each interval. So every time the chronograph seconds hand in red makes one full rotation, the minute hand will click over rather than sort of moving along with the seconds hand, which is actually really nice because it means that you're always be able to tell very quickly what minute you're on. Whereas if you, let's say, had one that was running constantly and you were at 50 seconds, it might be hard to tell whether you're at a minute and 50 seconds or just 50 seconds. As far as dial layout goes, you can see there are a number of scales around the outside. I don't really know enough about the historic uses of the chronograph to tell you what they do. If you do know, please in the comments leave a comment below. The most inner ring is the minutes and seconds. As you can see, 25, 30, 35. And inside of that you have the hours, the numerals, which it's hard to tell with my bad camera. They're patinaed now. They were definitely loomed. They're kind of a patinaed green color after all these years. They look very cool, I think, in an affordable vintage watch. The hands are pretty nondescript standard hands, also luminescent, and the loom still works. And then it has the chronograph seconds hand in red. I'll just leave this running for a little while since I need to reset it properly anyway. You see the brand name Delbana on the top of the dial, 17 joules, which is pretty traditional of movements from this era, and anti-magnetic. I haven't been able to find out in my research whether there's any additional anti-magnetic properties to this watch. I kind of doubt it since it was so affordable. I think this is anti-magnetic in the sense that, they had moved forward a little bit in watch development, but it's not, obviously it's not a modern anti-magnetic watch. The dial itself, depending on the light, it's silver. Depending on the light, it can look kind of cream or white colored, and then in slightly dimmer light you can see that it's silver. It's definitely not a white dial. The hands, if I can catch them properly in the light, are blue. There you saw the chronograph hand click over to 2. The hands are blue. I imagine that they are painted. I don't know for sure, but at this price point you can see some of the rust and the patina there as it comes to the light from the window. The case is pretty standard construction, pretty simple, brushed on the sides, polished on the top and the back, and then the back you see some information about the steel that they're using. I haven't been able to find details on this particular watch. Based on the way it feels in the era, I believe it's chrome-plated base metal of some kind. rather than actual stainless steel, and the back clearly is stainless steel, but I don't think the whole case is. The lugs are thin, sort of elegant, and you can see that there's kind of like a twist or bevel on the side, which is one of the things I found very appealing about the watch. And it has drilled lug holes to make your life a little easier. The crown is not signed, assuming this is the original crown. I had limited information since I bought this, not from a watch dealer, but from an antique dealer. I don't think this is the original crystal. I don't know for sure. The listing for this on eBay said it had been recently serviced. Whether that's true or not sort of escapes me. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it was recently serviced, because you would think they would have fixed the chronograph so it was more consistent and snapping back to 12. I think probably all that they really mean is that it was cleaned up and that the crystal was replaced, because there weren't that many scratches on it when I got it. And if you can see, I don't know if it'll focus, see how there's a little bit of residue around the edge of the crystal, like adhesive residue? I think it was just kind of badly glued on, to be honest. I've spoken to a watchmaker locally about, the possibility of servicing this movement and getting it oiled, getting it, whatever replacement parts or adjustments would be needed to make the chronograph hand always snap back to 12 and work properly. He specializes in vintage watches, and he assured me that it wasn't a very difficult fix, that he works on this movement a lot. The sheer volume of them that they made between 1937 and 1970, whether it was the 47, the 48, or any of the successors, I would think, which went Landeron 49 through 151, they're all related. He sees them a lot. He says it's not hard to fix. But of course, because it's a vintage watch, there is some cost to it, which I'm just not willing to spend right now. I just don't have the money. And vintage repairs can be very expensive. Anyway, whatever crystal this is, whether it's the original or not, and I don't think it is, it's a pretty heavy dome. Obviously, it's a Hesalite plastic crystal, which is to be expected from any watch of this era. And then the width of the watch is 35 millimeters, the diameter I should say, and the lug width is 19 millimeters, not the 18 that was listed by the seller. I don't have calipers, so I'm not going to measure lug to lug. I mean, it's what you would expect from a 35 millimeter watch. It wears like its size. Let me put it on really quickly. I mean, I have it on my right wrist, which is not where I would normally wear it, obviously. But you can see on my tiny little wrists, it wears beautifully. It's a perfect size. For reference, this is a 37 millimeter Seiko S&K 807, which pretty much everyone either has or is aware of. That's how that wears my wrist. And you can see that's a 37 millimeter watch. I have tiny wrists. So this 35 millimeter vintage size is perfect. It's more delicately featured than the Seiko that I just showed you, but it actually wears about the same because the lugs are long. The lug tip to lug tip is definitely longer. And the chrono pushers add a little bit of extra presence, I think. Anyway, besides the issues with the chronograph itself, the watch keeps very good time. It is a little loud. Maybe you can hear if I bring it up close. I can't tell if you'll hear that until I've edited the video, but it is quite loud. Perhaps the service will help with that a little bit. But it keeps good time. It looks great, and as long as I don't screw around too much with the chronograph, it'll be fine until I have the time and the budget to get it serviced. I just think it's almost impossible to get a better deal on a mechanical chronograph than this. You see it just barely missed the 12 o'clock mark again. So it's always close, but it's not as precise as it should be, which will be fixed with the service. I only did that because I wanted to show you. It is hand winding. There's always a little bit of pushback, of feedback to the winding, even when it's completely unwound, which was new for me. And there's only one setting position in the crown for setting the time, as you can see there. Even when this watch was new, it definitely would not have had good water resistance. It's a snapback case. It has a non-screw down crown, and the pushers obviously don't screw down either. Today, I would not even take this anywhere near water. It's been dented and banged up. Clearly, whoever took the case back off last didn't do a great job. And I can't imagine that the gaskets were replaced, if there are any. It's definitely a dress watch, a watch for wearing around the house or when I go to school to teach. Let's talk more about the strap. This is a very inexpensive 19mm leather strap I purchased from eBay. I'll take you to the computer in just a second and show you the seller and some of the options that he has in other colors. But just as a quick review, this is about $20. It has the side stitching that's very popular right now that you see on a lot of the Color Up models, a lot of the Jack Foster straps, some of the Chrome XL straps you can find on Island Watch. But it's an unfinished strap. You can see the back is just rough, unfinished leather, quickly cut out of a single piece of leather, folded over, glued, and stitched. And that's about all there is to it. It's very thin. After wearing it for a while, there's a lot of give to it. It cracks a little bit. It's not going to be an incredibly durable band, but here's the benefit. This seller will make bands to pretty much any width that you need. So if you have a vintage piece with 17mm, 19mm, 21mm lugs, you can get something quickly to put on it that's not going to cost you a fortune. And when I bought this, I didn't want to go out and spend a ton of money on a high-end 19mm strap that I was only going to use in this watch. So for now, this is fine. You'll see too, it does have some rubbing and wear where the finish on the top has come off. That should not be looked at as a negative feature of this particular strap. It's a problem with the watch. The lugs are so close to the case. I had a collar wrap strap on this that was much more expensive, and same thing started to happen to that strap. It's just the design of the watch. Pretty much any distressed style leather strap you have is going to rub off at those points. For me, that's not really a problem. This is clearly a vintage distressed looking strap. It's a vintage watch, and it gives it a casual, older look, which I personally really like. But my negative point of the strap is simply that I guarantee you, after a few more months of use and sweat and wear, it's going to need to be replaced. And so if the budget is there, you might as well buy a nicer strap in the first place. But I do think this is a great strap option for those guys who have a lot of watches or watches coming in and coming out, especially vintage pieces, and might need custom sizes or just a good-looking, affordable strap. Let's take a quick pause and go look at the seller's eBay store. Apologies for any glare on the screen, but I wanted to show you the eBay store that I decided to go with when I purchased this strap after some research. It's a store from a seller called Watchstrap-3H, and you'll see that in 267 reviews, he has 100% feedback. He was great to work with. As soon as I ordered the strap, he sent me a message through eBay asking what size requirements I had. You can customize the width, the length, and the number of holes. And he messaged me again when he shipped the strap, letting me know it had shipped, letting me know the approximate date window for delivery, and encouraging me to reach out to him if I had any questions. Really, really easy to communicate with. Very responsible seller. Let's look at some of the items he currently has for sale. They're all handmade straps in similar styles to the one I have. They're going to be unfinished, thin, they are what they are. I don't think that you should necessarily look at them negatively just because they're not high-end leather straps. I think that they offer great value. Anyway, you see he has a bunch of different colors. You can get a rally-style racing strap like the one here if you have maybe a Speedmaster, an Autodromo, something like that, where you want the racing-inspired strap. A lot of different colors of the distressed calf leather. This is a really cool one. It's a military style. for only $19.50, not a bad price at all. And you can see that it has sort of an aging process that's been given to it. He says in the title, it says military paint, but it's just an aged kind of oily, distressed looking strap. Really cool, I think. And there's a bunch of pictures of each strap. He tends to show it with a watch. And it says always whether it's just one size or whether multiple sizes are available. Here you see a suede strap, and it looks like it's a double piece of leather that's folded over, well, a single piece that's folded over, so it's doubly thick to the one I just showed you, which would be a little bit more durable and more padded, obviously. Let's see, sort of a gray, another suede brown strap. A lot of them are that same style with the side stitching, which is really popular right now, as I'm sure you've seen, but often very expensive. I mean, $30, $50, $100, $300 for some of these straps. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a quick look. If you're looking for an inexpensive strap just to change up the look of your watch, or to put on a vintage watch you've bought that has a terrible or broken strap or band, this guy's great. You're not going to get the highest end leather in the world, but you're not paying for it. And I think that if you want this look, he offers a lot of customizable options, and colors and lengths and widths, and anything to make a watch band that fits the watch you have in mind. I'll pull up my watch again too. It might be hard to tell, but the taper on the strap that I bought is also beautiful. A really elegant, thin taper that if you have smaller wrists like I do, I think makes this strap very comfortable and very refined looking. So yeah, again, I wouldn't say this is the nicest strap in the world. I imagine by next year at this time I'll have to replace it with something else, but it's comfortable to wear, it looks really cool, and there's just so many options. Here's another one with blue stitching, which is really cool. So, with the caveat about quality and finishing level, this seller has absolutely my 100% recommendation. As long as you know what you're getting, you're going to get what you want from him, and he'll work with you, to make whatever strap you need. I'll include a link below to his eBay store. Definitely check him out if you're looking for that elusive style and size that you can't find elsewhere for an affordable price. Anyway, that's been my review today. Hopefully it won't be too long once I cut it all together. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear more thoughts that you might have on the vintage Swiss chronograph value prop. Again, this was less expensive than a brand new Seagull 1963 reissue. And now, that's not to say that it doesn't have an equal number of potential problems and servicing needs, probably even more, but it is Swiss made. It's a movement with real history, a predecessor to the ETA and the Valjoux movements. Just a really, really cool piece of horological history to pick up for less than the cost of my Seiko SARB 035, significantly less. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions, if there's other watches you'd like to see reviewed, or other straps you're interested in. I'm happy to tailor my content to some of the stuff that you guys are most interested in. Please leave a comment below, like or subscribe if you enjoyed watching this video, and I'll be back in a few days with something else.